Critical Support, the news and views from two expert journalists. Myself, Shirin or in Americese, Shirin Sadeghi. As you can tell from my name, I'm Iranian, and as you can tell from my accent, I'm American. And my co-host, Charles Davis.
I'm Charles Davis. I'm an American journalist based in Vienna, Austria, founder of the publication The Redoubt, and a contributor to The Guardian.
Welcome, folks, to another episode of Critical Support, where Charles Davis and hi Charles.
Hello.
we get together and try to figure out what the beep is going on in this world. We're trying to stay positive. There are positive things to stay about, but here we are. I can't say that this episode is exactly the most happy-go-lucky episode, Charles. What do you think?
When are they? It is 2026. We accept the world that we are given.
It's the real world, man. It's not, it's not all, what do they say, tulips and daisies?
No, it is not. Nor is this just a podcast, by the way. I don't know how you feel about that word, but I've always felt it's a little bit derogatory, or at least I've used it as such. But we aspire to be more than just talking about our social media feeds. I know you especially are not a social media consumer, which is great. But the reason I think this is not a podcast and aspiring to be more of a radio show is this is going to be our second episode in a row with an actual, well-produced, well-reported field report. This time from yourself, because I understand you went to Amsterdam. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened there?
I did. And yes, I agree. Let's call ourselves Critical Support Radio because
Agreed.
I think
We're here on out.
yes, this is Critical Support Radio. I don't know what a podcast is, but this is a radio show. Yes, I did. I went to Amsterdam, which I've been to many times. But this time around, I don't know. I just ended up feeling different about the city. I wanted to understand more of the history that I've read quite a bit since the last time I visited. And I ended up at Anne Frank House. Um, and it was a really sunny, hot day. And there were lots of tourists. Everybody was happy. There's people walking around with ice cream cones and shorts and sunglasses. And I just didn't feel that.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that because I was in Amsterdam over this past Christmas, right? And I remember, I was there for like 3 nights, and you're trying to put together an itinerary, and you're thinking Van Gogh Museum, maybe we'll walk by, do a little canal boat tour, and then you're like, well, maybe we should throw in the Anne Frank house, and it feels a little weird, right? Like if you're going to the city, particularly as I was like 6 months ago to like have a good time and relax, it feels a little bit disrespectful to just throw in the Anne Frank house as another tourist stop. And also like, because you think, as I did, like, am I just going to go about my day before and after as if I'm not going into like a sacred space? Like, am I supposed to just go out and have a dinner and a beer or whatever? And like, just think of it as like another stop on my vacation. So I'm wondering if that's how you felt, because like it does seem like from your description that that's what a lot of people do, right? It's just like they look at the TripAdvisor, they see the top 5 things you must see, and the Anne Frank house is understandably one of them. But I don't know. Yeah, I just didn't feel like I would be in the right mindset, and I didn't think I would like seeing others who are similarly not in the right mindset.
It's just, this is the thing about history. Any location you go to, I mean, you happen to be in Vienna right now, which is, for me, it's just history embodied. And I can't be in Vienna ever and not think about Nazis.
Well, no, it's inescapable, right? Like, I mean, I knew a little bit about World War II and the Nazis and everything, but I didn't really know too much about Austria before coming here. And yeah, the other weekend I was out shopping for furniture at a discount store, like something that's like crappier than IKEA. And then like 3 blocks away, I stumble across a plaque on a normal looking apartment building that's like 300 Jewish children were housed here on their way to like a concentration camp. And that's just like the everyday occurrence. Like you can turn a corner, read a plaque, and read about like a Nazi war crime.
It's just it's it's hard to, I don't know. Is it wrong of us to pause in our minds and reflect on that history? Should we just be like, okay, that is history. It's old news. I mean, my personal view is I'm not going to be able to let go of any history if I visit, I don't know, Egypt, or if I visit Peru, any country that I'm in. Um, Even anywhere in the United States, I will think about who tread here before, what happened here before. It crosses my mind. It might be because I know, maybe because I know the history, and then the people who don't feel that way don't know what happened on this street or something, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've also discussed before that we must live our lives. We can't be dour and wearing our like critical hair shirts all the time. But you can't also just go through life with blissful ignorance as to what has happened on the ground that you're standing on. And particularly as, here in Europe, when we're talking about the Holocaust, you need to be mindful of that history because certainly while history doesn't repeat, as they say, it does have echoes. And so if you are not familiar with the fact that ultra violence can come to like a civilized cosmopolitan city like Vienna or Berlin or Amsterdam, you're not going to be aware of the fact that the threat is like always there if you allow it to rise up again.
The thing is, I mean, isn't the saying that history does repeat itself? Because, I mean, it does. It does repeat itself. I mean, it feels like it's repeating itself right now. And I think that whole point you just made about um, what terrible things happened in the past in cosmopolitan societies, that feels like it's happening now again in many parts of the world. So yeah, with all these hate movements and these billionaires funding hate again, because it does feel that way. So here's the thing. I did end up in front of Anne Frank House. And it it did put a damper on what was supposed to be just a relaxing break. But I'm okay with that because I think it's important. I think it is important to acknowledge history. This is a theme for me in life. It is history that brought us here today. So that matters to me. Now, what happened is I just collected some ambient sound and just randomly tried to get some interviews. And it turns out I was able to put a package together, a report. And should we listen to it?
Yeah, let's go ahead and play that.
Like all roads in Amsterdam, Prinsengracht is a busy one on the weekend. Traffic consists of pedestrians, mostly tourists from the sound of it, cars, and of course, blink and you will get hit by one, bicycles. Above, birds chirp and you instinctively look up only to notice a tall church tower. This is the edge of the Jordaan neighborhood, and the church is the Westerkerk, the largest Protestant church in the city, built in the first half of the 1600s and resting place of the renowned painter Rembrandt. But it's another building on Prinsengracht that is causing the commotion. At number 263 is the secret annex where Anne Frank, her sister, parents, and 4 other Jewish people hid for 2 years and 1 month before they were discovered and transported to their deaths. Only Otto Frank, Anne's father, survived, living to share the tale his daughter told. I'm standing at the exit of the house across the road by the canal. The gracht in Prinsengracht means canal, and this city woven between water has a history as murky as the sloshing depths that cover its surface. When the dust had settled on World War II, 75% of Amsterdam's Jewish population never came back, mostly because they were no longer alive. The body count of Holland's Jewish population was the highest per capita in Western Europe. The Dutch fascist party, the NSB, collaborated with the Nazis who occupied the Netherlands from May 1940 to May 1945 to transport over 100,000 Jewish people from their homes to Arbeitslager in Germany. Work camps, they were called. They were in fact work-to-death camps, or for millions of others, just death camps. Anne's family was transported to Auschwitz-Birkenau in Poland a month after their August 1944 capture. They were on the last ever transport from Holland to Germany. The Dutch extermination project was overseen by the Austrian Nazi Arthur Seyss-Inquart, who was appointed by Hitler to run the occupation of the Netherlands. In a speech he gave in Amsterdam on the 12th of March 1941, around a year after the occupation of Holland began, Seyss-Inquart discussed the, quote, Jewish question.
Und die Juden werden von uns nicht als ein Bestandteil des niederländischen Volkes anerkannt. Die Juden sind für uns nicht Niederländer. Sie sind jene Feinde, mit denen wir weder zu einem Waffenstillstand noch zu einem Frieden kommen können.
We do not consider the Jews to be members of the Dutch nation. To us, the Jews are not Dutch. The Jews are the enemy with whom no armistice or peace can be made. He was tried and executed at Nuremberg. Though most of the Nazis on trial there showed no contrition, Seyss-Inquart, along with Hermann Göring, Hitler's second in command, was infamous for boasting and defending his actions as patriotism for das Vaterland. I try to ask multiple people why they visited Anne Frank House and how they felt about the site. 1, 2, 4 people refused. They spoke English. They just didn't know what to say. Then a stout, red-faced man pushed his way toward me. His accent was Germanic. I'll tell you how I feel about Anne Frank House. It's a tourist attraction and nothing more. That's all it is for me. It happened so fast I didn't even get a chance to record him. And then he stormed off down the road. That's when an American tourist from Arizona volunteered to speak to me.
Yeah, so we just finished the tour. It was really, really interesting. Somber, obviously. The hiding place was a little bit bigger than I anticipated it being, but it's remarkable that they were able to stay there hidden for 2 years. It was well worth it. I would recommend doing it.
Many of the online reviews of the house expressed disappointment that the secret annex has been remodeled with shiny wooden floors, and all the furniture and effects have been removed. Otto Frank, Anne's father, had raised funds in the early 1950s to purchase the house and preserve it as a place for the public to visit and honor his daughter's memory. He was also a trailblazer of Holocaust awareness. In the years just after the war ended, few had the strength or the interest to revisit the atrocities committed by the Nazis and their collaborators. Anne Frank House opened in 1957, 10 years after the first edition of the diary. In the rooms below the annex, there are glass cases in a museum style with descriptive cards and personal possessions of the Frank family and their compatriots who came so close to surviving World War II in hiding. One of the notebooks Anne wrote her diary in, the famous one with the red and white plaid cover, is also on display. But not everyone gets a chance to enter. The tickets are sold in small batches 6 weeks in advance and require long-term planning to get a hold of. A Spanish lady is standing in front of the building for some time, taking photos from different angles, including of the tiny silver placard that sits on the black bricks just to the right of the exit door. It states simply, Anne Frank House, Dutch for house.
Siga la gente queriendo venir, que la gente quiera saber de la historia, quiera saber, me parece.
I wanted to go inside, but there are no tickets. It's a history that is important, and I wanted to come here and see it for myself. The area in front of the house also happens to be a canal boat dock. It's one of the spots in the city where canal rides can be booked. The conductor of our boat appears to be in his 60s. He keeps one hand on the large wood steering wheel and rests a long, thin leg on a stool to the left. He adds flair to the journey as he curses, often in English weirdly, while he struggles to calculate angles to maneuver the boat around the tight turns and narrow underpasses. He knows a lot about the city and seems to take pride in it.
In the past, the water quality was very bad here because they were not connected to the sewage system. So if they went to the toilet, it went directly into the water. So it was very dirty. Nowadays, we have very fresh water here. They have electrolyzed to the sewage system and they have fresh water on board. So if you look into the color of the water now, if you put it in a glass, it looks like light Chardonnay.
He points out the Holocaust memorial wall to our right, a long black piece of marble with the names of all the Dutch people, mostly Jews, who were killed. The statistics he announces are chilling. I picture Sijs Inquart with his thin voice that lurched through a heavy Austrian accent, showing up in the Netherlands to tell the locals who counts as Dutch and who doesn't. He and Hitler had done the same thing in Germany, another country neither of them had been born in, grown up in, or even lived in until adulthood. Sijs Inquart wasn't even his real name. His father was Czech and had changed the family name from Zeitig. When Otto and Edith Frank moved their daughters Anne and Margot to Amsterdam in 1934, after the Nazis had consolidated Hitler's power in 1933, they were leaving behind a country that their families had lived in for over 400 years. Otto had served, with a pride he'd written home about, in World War I. He'd been awarded an Iron Cross for his services. If anyone in that equation was German, it was the Franks. The water sloshes up against the canal wall, and to me it looks dark, not Chardonnay. Litter bobs up and down and slaps onto the bricks. And the canal, a refreshing sight on this hot day, is actually dank, and from where we sit, its depths are imperceptible. For Critical Support Radio, this is Shirin Soderi. So yeah, I mean, just listening to that again just kind of takes me to that same feeling I had. I mean, I'm not much of a canal person, so just the sight of those canals throughout that city, while interesting, does give me a general sense of murkiness. What do you
Well,
think?
well, I would say, coming from America and now living in Austria, I know it hits a little bit different when the bigoted, stout, red-faced person is talking to you with a German accent, right? It's like,
Oh God,
uh, so
that
yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I just think that like, it's not hard to think back to World War II, especially particularly when you're sitting outside the Anne Frank house. And though I know this is unfair to the vast majority of German-speaking people, but yeah, as an American, you come over and you hear it in German, and or hear it in a German accent, and you're like, yeah, right, this is like the Nazi land.
Yeah, it was just so weird, because I got the impression after he left and I kind of collected myself that he had been watching me, fail to get an interview, or a vox pop multiple times at that point. He had been watching me and he was like, "You know what? I'm going to I'll give her a sound bite."
And
And
what do you think he meant by that too, by the way? Like
I
a
mean,
tourist attraction and nothing more. Like, I mean, is he trying to hide behind like a pseudo woke, cynical view of consumerism, or is this just like what it sounds like?
I mean, he had not been in the Anne Frank house.
Right.
He I don't know if he had just gotten off of a boat ride or if he was having a beer nearby or if he had visited the Protestant church that's right there, but he had definitely not been at the Anne Frank house. There was no sticker on his shirt, or there was I don't even know if he was a tourist. He didn't have, like, a camera or anything. It really did feel like he was passing by and had stopped and was curious because someone was
And
sticking a
decided to
phone.
be a and decided to be a jerk outside the Anne Frank house, as one does.
Yes, as one does. But it was just, like, it was perfect for my audio package, of course, but
Right.
it was also, I have to tell you, it was really unsettling
Yeah, I
because
mean, it's unsettling because you were talking about right before we played your show. It does certainly feel like history is repeating. I've always resisted that because it feels like one can easily descend into doomer nihilism. Because if we are destined to repeat the same mistakes over and over, what is the point of like fighting for a better world? If this is just like it's just always going to happen. And certainly when you look at Germany and Austria, we have like neo-fascist parties that are the most popular in every single opinion poll. And I guess the question is like why? And I don't think we're going to answer that now, but it's like why is this like neo-fascist and anti-Semitic movement gaining steam now? Not that there was any justification for it in the 1930s, but the popular analysis of it was like, oh, there's the Great Depression, and when people are struggling, they can fall prey to these like bigoted demagogues. It's yada yada yada. Right now, I'm not going to say there aren't problems in Europe or the United States, but like historically, people are doing pretty well, especially here in Europe, I gotta say, where you still have like free healthcare and a decent public transit system and a social safety net to fall back on, right? There aren't food lines. So like what explains it other than, I don't know, a phrase I used earlier in our show, earlier in our season at least, this luxury bigotry. Is it just that people are just like so comfortable that they can just indulge these like prejudices and it doesn't really have any grounding, any like material suffering that they're experiencing?
well, look, the key word you use there is latent, bigotry. This is always
Luxury bigotry,
I
as in,
see.
like, but you're actually getting at another point. Has it just always been there under the surface and people now just feel empowered to be jerks? Like, they see Donald Trump, they see all these, like, fascist leaders in Europe just saying what, everyone's thinking supposedly, and they think, "Yeah, okay, whatever. I can be a jerk outside the Anne Frank house now. This is the time we live in."
Look, free license to be a jerk, is always going to be grasped by a good portion of any public. I think the question is not whether they've been given permission to act on latent bigotry, but rather why they've been given this permission. And I've got a lot of theories of my own, but I do believe that they are clearly the likes of Trump and the Palantir boys and Elon Musk. I do believe that they are consolidating the labor force. They are consolidating populations now to reduce jobs, to change the face of human society so that AI and other automated or tech systems do a lot of the work that gives people purpose, that gives the average human being a reason to wake up in the morning. And they're doing that by telling people that you're native, you're better, you get to stay, and people who are not native, people who are lesser than you, must go. They are the problem. We must get rid of them.
Yeah, and as you pointed out in your piece, like the Frank family had been in Germany for at least 400 years, and it didn't matter. There was some quality, and I think we know what, that made them not German, not Dutch enough, right? Like, and we see that now. Like, I just did a report the other day about this remigration summit where all of Europe and America's top fascists gathered in Portugal to talk about this very same thing, right? Remigration is a far-right euphemism for getting everyone who is not white as they perceive them out of Europe, out of America. It doesn't matter when it gets down to it with these activists. It doesn't matter if you're a legal citizen. It doesn't matter if you're third, fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever generation. They know just by looking at you or seeing what place of worship you go to that you are not really Western European. You are not really American. And again, like we're seeing this happen at a time when like historically people are doing okay. And yet there's still this scapegoating that we saw again during the times of the Great Depression. But now it's like there isn't even that fig leaf of like, this is about something other than just hating you based on your identity.
Well, this is what I'm saying, is that this is a historic refashioning of populations. It's what's happening in Europe and former European colonies like Australia, the United States, even Canada, which no one's talking about. Um, this is a historic re-engineering of populations.
Yeah, and one thing I would point out, I interviewed or I spoke to a professor at Vanderbilt University a few months back, a social scientist, political scientist named Larry Bartels. And he had looked at survey data from Europe. And this is actually one encouraging thing, I would say. During the Great Recession in Europe, young people did not become more anti immigrant. There was a lot more coverage of anti immigrant movements, a lot more coverage of the far right, which certainly made gains. But it was not because the younger populations shifted to the right. I think one thing that is happening right now, as you've discussed, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, there's a lot of money behind these movements. So it's not operating on a level playing field. And certainly, like there's been outsized coverage of the gains that these movements have made. So like even though it's very, very bad that 38% of the Austrian population is willing to vote for a neo-fascist party called the Freedom Party, even though it's very bad that 30% of the German public is willing to vote for Alternative for Deutschland, we still should take some solace in the fact that 2/3 of the population, roughly, is like, not, no, I do not want to go back to the 1930s. But the problem, I think, is that like the platform, the money is all behind this like far right pseudo populism. I don't know what you think about that.
There's no doubt about that. But what is, I think, really baffling to a lot of people who are observing these trends, like yourself and me, is that it's also happening on the far left, Charles. Like, if you look at the Green Party, the elections that happen in the United Kingdom on May 7th. Now, this is something interesting. I was searching to see if Anne Frank was in the news recently. She's often in the news. Interestingly enough, it's fascinating that she's still very relevant to this day. But in Newcastle, in the United Kingdom, a Green Party official named Tina Ion had, ahead of the election, created a Threads account, the real Anne Frank, and she had put a picture of Anne Frank wearing a keffiyeh, and she was spouting anti-Semitic statements on this Threads account. It was pretty bad. Things like she was calling Zionists vermin and rats. So and then again, let's
Right.
talk about whether this is anti-Semitic, because she was using the word Zionist, right? And and later, of course, she was accused of clouding anti-Semitism with the Z word, as they say. She was saying that quote, every single Zionist should be killed. She talked about an industrial shredding machine, which she called, quote, a Zionist juicer. This is just some of the stuff. So
Right.
The Green Party then denounced her and said, we don't support her. But on the day of the election, she got 453 votes from Green Party voters. And the only other Green Party person who got top votes got 457.
Right.
I don't know that we can say that hate is only on one side of the political spectrum anymore. I don't understand what's going on. I'm not sure what to say. Was this anti-Semitism, that what she
I
did?
think obviously, because I also think I hear you on the idea that left and right are definitely imperfect. Like trying to like put everybody into one or the other doesn't really work. I think sometimes what is more useful is to see like who is prone to conspiratorial thinking, who's prone to like just authoritarian thinking. And unfortunately, we've seen definitely like a lot of anti-Semitism, not just on the right, but those who like at least purport to be on the left. And they use I guess, the cover of the Israeli government's truly horrible genocidal actions to, for example, in Philadelphia, there were protesters going after a falafel shop called Goldie's and calling it Zionist, calling it, complicit in the Netanyahu regime's like genocide based solely on the fact that it was run by an Israeli immigrant, a liberal who criticized the Netanyahu government and who had done what some of these people would have wanted, which is to leave Israel. Why are you now protesting them? And even earlier in Philadelphia, some in the anti-Israel pro-Palestine movement had decided to protest a food truck that was run by Israeli immigrants. Again, based on the fact that they were hawking falafel and that Jews could somehow not claim true, authentic ownership over that dish, as if they were appropriating that from Palestinians. And I mean, it's infuriating to me because there's so much legitimate criticism of Israel, and yet we had people going after falafel shops. And yes, using the cover of Israel and using the cover of like quote unquote Zionism, which we could have a whole episode on whether Zionism is a legitimate perspective. I'm actually here in Vienna, which was where the political Zionism was founded. Interesting fact.
Yeah, Theodore Herzl.
But I do find that like this is maybe a whole rant for another episode, but like certainly for a certain type of person who lives in a very compromised country, whether it be the UK or America, countries that have done a lot of very bad things, they work out their guilt about settler colonialism and nationalism by painting with a broad brush anyone that they can see as in any way supportive of Israel, even as like its right to quote unquote exist, right? Like they hold the Israeli population or anyone that is like broadly sympathetic to the right of a Jewish population to exist in that region as to a different standard than they hold themselves. I mean, I saw this again like after the October 7th terrorist attacks. People that I had met in real life, so I'm not like just looking at social media, people I knew in real life were justifying like the massacre of people that had gone to a rave on the basis that how dare they party so close to Gaza, right? Like, and I understand that it is a bad look, but the same people I had to ask myself have probably partied within a mile of Rikers Island.
Yeah.
Or like in downtown Los Angeles, there's a federal detention center and there are immigrants that bang on the windows, then you can have like solidarity rallies outside them. But I know a few blocks away, people are drinking, they're doing coke, they're going to raves, like, and yet we would not justify a slaughter of them. So like I saw that kind of double standard, which is not in any way to say like you should not criticize Israel, but certainly like the willingness to embrace like slaughter of civilians on the basis that they were Zionists and that they were partying without consideration to the suffering around them. Like certainly that's not the standard you would apply to Americans or Brits or Germans or whatever. So we definitely do need to be mindful of like where that anti-Semitism creeps into the very legitimate criticism of Israel.
These are all great points. And it can bring us back to the question you asked earlier, which is essentially who counts as native? Are the ones that count as native, which equal sign on a math equation means you get to live, because maybe we're on the brink of this happening again. It does feel very real. What about the big chunk in the middle who have the ability to say both of these things are wrong? What Israel did is wrong. What happened on October 7th is wrong. What about the big chunk of people in the middle? Are they the ones that have to die because they're not being extreme?
We started out heavy, and now we're closing with a very heavy question. I say, back to the question of like whether history is destined to repeat, that I am still hopeful and optimistic, if only out of personal mental health reasons, that the people that are not on the extreme, that are not falling into or like revealing their anti-Semitism or their xenophobic exterminationist agenda, like I'm hopeful that most people are still at the end of the day decent, that they aren't like these like weirdo Nazis, incel Zoomers that gathered in Portugal over the weekend, like that they are, or like earlier in or late May, I should say, that yeah, again, like even with the rise of the far right in Europe, that most people still reject what it stands for. And in parliamentary democracies, there's at least a chance to keep the far right out of power so far as that's the case. But certainly one can despair.
Look, Charles, I believe that there's always been the big chunk in the middle that are not extreme. My question that kind of came up for me as I was at Anne Frank House, as I was editing this report together, is who gets to live? Because that's what it came down to, and that's what it feels like is happening again.
Yeah, and certainly if you look at the far right, it's never like enough for them to get rid of the enemy of the day, right? I was watching an interview for a report I was doing with a Swiss neo-Nazi, just some fun pastime of mine to watch this stuff.
See, there you
Uh,
go.
and
You're
no,
trying to stay positive and you're watching this stuff.
and the interviewer just asked the guy, and the interviewer was probably some other form of Nazi, but the interviewer was like, okay, what is your like ideal utopian Europe like? And like this should be a softball, right? But like the neo-Nazis, these people on the far right are completely defined by what they hate. So this loser just like stumbles and is like, oh yeah, like it would be a world where I didn't have to think about like migrants so much, and like I didn't have to see modernist architecture. And I'm like, man, you are privileged. This guy was like an art student from Zurich. It's like, you don't have to spend so much time thinking about migrants right now, right? Like you live in Switzerland. It is like a utopia compared to most other countries, especially for a white male like yourself. You don't have to get so upset over modernist architecture. I see buildings that I think are ugly all the time, and I go about my day. But they could not even paint though, like their vision of utopia, which is just my way of saying that like, if they got rid of the migrants, if they got rid of the Jews, there would be another member of society that they considered not Swiss, not German, not Austrian, not British enough. It would be, you know, what we would consider a true like 12th generation Brit who just does not conform to their stereotype of what a British person should be, right? Like it's never enough. They always need, because that is what motivates these people. That is what they see, that is what their identity is defined by. It's not what they stand for, but what they stand against.
Wait, so you mean we could just solve the problem of hate movements across the world, or certainly Europe, if we just got rid of all those ugly Bauhaus structures?
Apparently, but then again, they would find another type of architecture to hate. There would be something that was just like not quite up to par, or they would look up the political donations of the architect who did make the traditionalist architecture and find that they were too woke. It would be something, right? Because they can't stop, and we see that with like the Trump administration too, right? Like Republicans control every branch of the American government. But do they like act happy at any point? Like, I mean, there's some happy gloating for sure, but like they're still defined by like, oh man, these woke people and trans people, and like you guys, you've won. Like trans people are fleeing red states. Like you cannot take, you know, the victory. You cannot take the
As are
W.
immigrants.
No, of course. Like there is I would say fair to say, an ethnic cleansing campaign going on in the United
See, this
States.
is what I'm talking about.
So
Great.
but yeah, but like again, these people aren't happy. Like if they got rid of every immigrant in America, it would be every woman who does not conform to their idea of like white Christian quote unquote femininity. It would be something, right? So there is no purity that will ever please these purity types.
So to close on a positive note, you mentioned, because you have this faith that through parliamentary recourse, through the democratic process and elections, you feel
Hey, I
that
don't have a lot of faith. Okay,
that this could
I'm
be
holding
we
onto
could
a
be
thread here.
yeah that we could be saved. I mean,
I mean, I guess my hope would still be that like the center, and I don't mean like mushy centrist. I don't know. I just mean like normal people and their representatives, like a normal social democratic left, can like seize the moment, find a charismatic figure to push back and actually stand and fight for a positive agenda. Because I do think, like, I don't want to defend Barack Obama, but the brand that he campaigned on in 2008 of hope and change, like in the face of like a recession, in the aftermath of a devastating war in Iraq, like there was a market for that. And I don't know if we have another charismatic Obama type figure, like just not talk about his policies, et cetera, but just like that campaign, that brand, I think. But we could, I think there's been demonstrated evidence that like people are willing to vote for hopeful things, right? But we just like, you know, in the UK, we have Keir Starmer and stuff in Labour that's just like on the back foot. That's like, okay, well, we're going to do the right wing stuff, but like, I don't know, with a little bit like higher vocabulary. And it doesn't, and at the end of the day, it doesn't please anybody. And so I guess I'm hopeful that some sort of person with more charisma than a damp sock can arise and capitalize on the fact that people would like, I think, for the most part, to believe in a better future. but instead they're getting told that the world is going to hell and only a neo-fascist demagogue can save it.
Here's to hoping for the glorious, as yet unknown savior of our times. Let's close with that, Charles. There's hope.
Yes, hopefully by the next episode we will have found that person or persons.
Yeah, right. No, let's stay positive. I like it. I like it. Good to get it out of our systems and talk like this, Charles. I look forward to talking with you again about all this stuff next week.
Yeah, next week on Critical Support Radio.
You got it.
Critical Support is available on Apple and Spotify. And if you would like to support our work and help us expand our operations, you can find us at patreon.com/critical support. Paid subscribers get early access to all new episodes and interviews, as well as extended cuts of our previous shows. And if you have any feedback, topics we should discuss, or people we should speak to, you can contact us at criticalsupportpod@proton.me. That's criticalsupportpod@proton.me.
Critical Support Charles X. Shirin is a weekly 30-minute podcast of views, news, and interviews. Shirin Soderi is the co-host, co-producer, and sound engineer. Charles R. Davis is the co-host and co-producer. The theme music is the song Level Zero by the band Mon Plaisir from their album Turbo Rally Clicker 4000. Critical Support receives no corporate or institutional funding. We aim to be free to hold all to account.